Hey everyone, this is Loki here. Today I'm going to be doing the shield bash jumps as Brigitte, obviously, on Blizzard World, and I'm going to be going from the attacker's very first spawn and play through the map all the way through to the defender's final spawn. The very first one is before you actually get to where the enemy normally holds. Sometimes enemies do pop up around this area, and rather than going through this little corner room area, you can just shield bash across. Okay, but here's where things start getting interesting. You can shield bash off these rocks and land on this little statue, or you can shield bash on the other side of the rocks and also land at the base of the statue. And then from here you can do a shield bash onto this little high ground here. You can also shield bash into this little letterbox, like so, and land up on this higher ground. The way you would line this up is aim for the left hand side of that letterbox, while also making sure that on the ground where there's all the confetti, there's this little pink piece of confetti, and you just make sure that you got your left foot on that, and then you jump and shield bash into the letterbox and you get up there. And shield bash onto this little shelter and slide along that. By the time you land on the point, you save about 1 or 2 seconds of your shield bash. You can also do it to the other side, which is a little bit more difficult. There's also this little rock thing you can shield bash into and land up on this higher ground. Here's an example of what it'll look like when there's an enemy up there. You can also shield bash into this rock on the other side and get up. If you do have trouble with that, you can jump on these boxes on the side and still get up. And you can also do it on an angle from the left hand side with that smaller rock. You can also go into this little side room where the attacker's second spawn is, jump on top of these barrels in this little wall and shield bash your way up, and then you can also jump on these hay bales and shield bash off the wall to get to that higher ground from earlier. And here's an example of what it would look like if there was an enemy player up there. Okay, so for a while I've been seeing these barrels in the games that I play, and every now and again when there's no enemies around, I would jump and shield bash into them and get some really good height, but I could never make it up onto the higher ground until I actually started recording this video because I wanted to try and perfect it, and I found out what was stopping me. But first, there's also the same issue that I have over here with this little bin, where I can shield bash into it and get some decent height off of it, but I just could never make it up. Now I was thinking with this bin, maybe the issue is this little light, but the light isn't even solid and you actually walk through it. The actual issue is this little ledge thing right here, because as you can see, when I jump, it bounces me back, and so that ledge is the reason you can't do either of these jumps. Alternatively, there is these barrels in a box. You can jump on and then jump on the sign and shield bash across. Here's an example of what it could look like when there's an enemy player there. For the defending team, you might see an attacker on that high ground, so you can jump and shield bash into this rock here and go all the way over the rooftop, and you can sneak up on that sniper who's on that high ground. Alternatively, if you aim it more of on an angle, you can also get up and over, and you'll land on the staircase, but you might be in the sniper's line of sight. And here's an example of when I did it in a public game, and my Mercy's reaction.
Holy Jesus! What is that? What the fuck is that?
Divergence leads to defeat.
Next up, you can get on top of this middle high ground area. As you would think, you shield bash into the rocks and you'd be able to launch yourself up, but that's not really the case. What you actually do is you jump up on this little bit here, and then you jump up on top of the sign, walk all the way to the other side, and then you jump and shield bash and you'll land over. Next up, you can shield bash onto that little bridge bit that connects to that middle high ground and get whatever sniper is up top. To do that, you just jump up on the sign as usual, and you shield bash into the street lamp and you get across. You can also get up on this little turret thing that's on the mountain. To do that, you just get up on the sign again, and shield bash into the cliff, and you will bounce your way up. And if done right, you can get all the way up on top of the turret. Here's an example of doing it when there's an enemy up there. You can also shield bash into the little leg here and land on top of the turret as well. From this high ground area, you can shield bash into this rock barrier and land on top of this pipe. There's these rocks where you can shield bash into them and get up onto the higher ground. You can also shield bash on the side. If you don't line it up right, that's what will happen. And if you do line it up right, you'll just bounce your way up. And here's an example of what it would look like if, let's say, there was an enemy up there. So this little fountain you can shield bash into and land on top of this pipe. It's kind of meaningless because if there's a sniper up there, I usually just whip shot them into the ocean. And finally, moving into the final section, there's not a lot here, but one thing you can do is shield bash across the gap and land on that mega. Or you can shield bash off the rails and land on top of this broken wall. There's also this other broken wall at the corner which you can shield bash into and get up on top of. From up here you can ambush whoever comes in through that door or around the corner. One thing I did find was this little weapon rack. Now I'm not certain if this would actually ever give you enough height to actually get up onto the higher ground. It might, but I thought this was interesting. And there's another interaction you get with it where it actually launches you off to the right. And I thought I'd include that. There's also this little broken wall here where you can shield bash into it and get up onto this higher ground. I actually saw this in a video from CarQ and it's very useful.